Can you see VS Code?
Yes.
Okay, so for my first term, I have done heavy work on understanding the core business logic of Talava, and for that I went through all the videos that BCHM have on their website and uh, on the Vimeo.net site to understand how BCHM does things and how Talava does things, to contrast how we are doing things differently from them. So after going through all that, I have accordingly uh, designed the Postgres database models for Talava. There is a little work left which needs polishing, but other than that, it's mostly complete. So here you can see, here's the folder in the Talava API package, visual schema, under which all the database model schema is present. The remaining work includes some discussion with the mentors, which I have also been having on Slack, but there haven't been clear responses to them yet. And the other things include uh, other things include include the work of other GSoC contributors, and depending on that, I will modify or delete the existing models which I have defined. For example, the file upload or the chat functionality. Both of these things are occupied by other GSoC contributors' work. So until that is done, I cannot really make claims on fixing that stuff in the server. One more thing I wanted to discuss was about plugins. I think you remember, right? I've raised the issue many times that plugins are really useless because all they're used for right now is toggling things like chats, donations, events, and posts, which can be done just using a Boolean field. So I think it needs to be decided whether we keep the plugins or we just make the implementation simpler by including Booleans. If you, I can also give. Yeah, one more thing that is left is documenting these database models. I haven't done that yet. I have to think of a way to document this, which would be meaningful to the contributors and the users of the application who are non-technical. So I'm still researching ways of doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Adarsh. I know that you'd mentioned that you wanted to possibly do like a code freeze near the end of GSoC and have people try to see how they could merge things together.
Yeah.
We're going to have to start that discussion soon as to when that cutoff date is, so that we can at least try to get a lot of this done, possibly in a separate branch. So start thinking about that, start socializing it, or letting people know. It'd be really good to try and agree upon what that freeze date would be, so that everybody can work towards it. Okay, so
yeah, I've been doing that on Slack. I think I've been very active in discussing these things with other contributors, so I can know how they're doing things, so I can define the stuff accordingly.
Right, but we still need to know.
But until their work is done, I cannot really be sure whether what I'm doing is correct.
Right,
I have to see their final work.
That's true, but we need to at least say when we need to do a code freeze, so that you can catch up with your work and then have people also do the code modifications to match the new GraphQL endpoints, because there's not going to be 100% identical. It's going to be mostly the same, but not 100%. So we just need to make sure that we get that done.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And yes, Dante, please go ahead.
Actually, I had a couple of suggestions for the plugin thing that Adarsh discussed. Like if we are gonna move to like Boolean implementation, then we could have things like there could be some use cases like for at mobile side. What we are doing right now is we are completely removing that section. If chat plugin is disabled or if post feed plugin is disabled, we are removing that section from the app. So what we could do is, if Boolean implementation is implemented, we could add fields like if field should be on the application, but your normal user couldn't make any post, something like that. That would be, I think, good, and for the better user experience. Yeah.
Yeah, we can make it more fine-grained, I think, to have much more functionality. Like we can have many booleans, which each of which dictate different things in the application. That's not a problem, really.
With the tag management implementation, we could also like apply with the tags, like what users to post, what users to make events.
You mean permission system?
I know actually I'm working on the event from the mobile side event plugin.
Yeah, I don't think permission system is implemented yet.
Yeah.
Currently, it's all dependent on roles, and roles have a predefined permission system assigned to them, which isn't stored in the database. That relation of permissions to roles is not stored in the database. It only exists in the application layer. So that's not doable right now. For example, for creating posts for a particular organization, this is a permission that you can give to a user. This thing is not present in the server right now because it is not persisted in the database. So you cannot associate it with a particular role or a particular user.
I do know that. Like I was telling you, like suggest if you were gonna work on that, and we could have that.
Yeah, but that is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Fine-grained permission system is not an easy thing. It will require many changes to the front end and the back end both. It's almost like a complete rewrite or something.
Yeah, let's try and keep it as simple as possible. At the moment, let's try and get the base functionality working, and then we can start thinking about some of these more complex modifications. So this is really a good
basically the thing is with permission system, you have to give admins the portal where they can assign those permissions to specific users or specific roles that they have created for those users. So that has not been implemented. So without that, I don't think how it's possible.
Right, and then once you start doing permissions, then the next thing that people are going to want to think about are permissions for particular screens within a particular role, etc. All of that.
Yeah.
Not right now. Let's just get the basic functionality done, and then move on. Adarsh, the original reason why we wanted to have plugins put in place, and it may not have been interpreted correctly, was that there's going to be a need for having multiple ways of dealing with donations and payment portals. So we may need to have an Indian-based plugin for Indian donations, so that plugin can be put in place as a separate chunk of code on a as demanded basis, maybe as a separate repo just for donation plugins, and then another one for Jamaica, another one for the United States, etc., and then have that implemented. So at the moment, the implementation of plugins is not quite where we want it to be. So we need to start thinking about if we remove the plugin functionality as is, or as it is now, we need to think of what we're going to be needing as plugins and how we're going to implement that properly when donations need to be put in place. And that day is coming soon because we have pledges and donations and fundraising more than likely going to be finished this year. So whenever you're thinking about plugins, think about it in that context, and then we can see what the best methodology would be.
I mean, I don't think realistically in any way the current implementation will help in the donations thing.
Okay, well let's come to a conclusion on that sooner rather than later, and then make the modifications this year if possible, but after the GSoC period.
You talked about donations in local currency, right? That's why you need the plugin feature.
No, not well. So it's not just the local currency, in local currency, but each of the payment processes is going to be different. right?
But doesn't Stripe handle that? Something like Stripe handles that for us, right?
Right, but it may not be available in every single jurisdiction, in every single country. That's why. And so, yeah, we may want to just have Stripe as a plugin, but it's not going to cover all cases. And therefore, we need to think of a way in which we can. There's no reason why we couldn't have Stripe as a default plugin, but then think of ways in which people could write a plugin for their own country where Stripe is not available, for example.
I don't think writing a plugin is such an easy task. I mean, I reckon it will be a pretty hard task for most people in the world. So I'm not sure how administrators will write plugins and upload them.
No, this would be for the code. This would be for the software people, right? They would say, this is the URL, this is the authentication method, etc., for the API to API communication. And so therefore the plugin should be relatively simple.
I think
but maybe I'm just
I think these things can only be answered by someone who's pretty good at payment processing stuff, and
right.
I don't think having this discussion with the people who are not experts is meaningful. I mean, I'm not even sure.
Agreed, but
how?
Agreed, but what I'm saying is that we need to think of how that can be done, and for whoever starts thinking about that, to take into consideration the possibility of dealing with two different payment processing systems using two different independent sets of code that can be interchanged on an as-needed basis as a starting point. And if plugins...
Yeah, I mean, then...
Okay, go ahead.
Then our first priority should be getting a person who's capable of... who's already an expert in payment processing. I think only then we can really define this feature.
GSoC 2025. All right, so let's do this one step at a time, and let's get the core features.
Any changes to the plugin things right now regarding the donations thing is not really meaningful unless we understand the complete picture of how it's going to be done.
Right, and so that's why I say let's leave it as is for now, and then we figure out how to revamp plugins. Hopefully in the next 12 months.
I'll have to define my Postgres schema around that.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we'll remove it in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And as long as it doesn't break things, that would be great. All right. Thanks a lot, Adarsh. Hasneen, go ahead, please.
Not a question, just a request to Adarsh. Since you are understanding our repo, so the business logic and whatever you understood, so try to create some lucid, and if you can update the documentation, that will be really useful for our new contributors, especially for the beginners. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I can improve the documentation on the API side, but I'm not sure it can be done in the best way if we don't include UI flows in the documentation. The UI flows that are present on the Talava mobile or Talava admin. Those have to be recorded in video or screenshots. Only then you can have some kind of documentation which makes sense to normal users who are not technical.
Yeah.
Right.
So right now, what I'm asking you, since you mentioned you are starting with understanding the logic, so the lucid, and we can add to the static part of our documentation, maybe the general section. So that's what I'm trying to do, and for that, API and other front end thing. So that is done via comments. So adding snippets, I don't know if we can do that, but yeah, I was about to request each and every contributor to at least add the basic comments and description. I'll post in the general group what all tags we required in the comments. There is one contributor, Divyanshu. He has been updating the comments to others. Logic. So it's very difficult for him to update everything. So I want whatever contribution is being done as part of GSoC 2024, this should be comment inclusive. Okay, that's all.
Are you talking about TF Doc?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I had talked to Peter about this, I think a month ago or something, about documenting this stuff and about making it mandatory for contributors to document
Yeah.
for their pull request and the code they're contributing.
Yeah.
So I think Peter should have a say in this.
Yeah, we're going to have to be more vigilant about it. I haven't been in the approvals, primarily because I've been trying to focus on getting just the functionality done. But yes, we should be making it more stringent. And Tasneem, if there's any way in which we can find a way in which we can flag a lack of comments in a pull request, that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, Peter. So yesterday only I had a connect with Divyanshu, and then we discussed few things, and we did highlight this part as well, adding some workflow or some bot which can be helpful. So this thing, I remember you mentioned about others as well to connect with him. You also want to contribute to the documentation part. So I didn't get chance to connect with him. So maybe others I'll connect with you offline. Will that be fine?
Yeah, you can connect with me on Slack.
Yeah.
And also, Tasneem, the Adarsh had some questions or some suggestions about putting the manual markdowns for each repository in the repositories themselves, and then integrating that into Tallow Docs somehow. That way somebody doesn't have to edit their manual documentation as separate repo. They can just do it all in a single PR. So trying to figure out what that could look like. We don't necessarily need to implement it now, but it'd be good to at least make the beginnings of what that could look like as a part of your discussions.
Yeah, Peter, I was about to discuss with him this only, but didn't know who this I think I asked you, but didn't get anything. So I'll connect with him offline with the solution.
Okay, thanks. My recent time has been very limited because of various things going on in my regular job. So I'm not going to be as respondent as I used to be. But thanks a lot. You can always ping me. You have the various ways to get in contact with me. Just remind me. It's not that I'm trying to ignore you.
No problem. I understand that. I just wanted to drive this because I know you were super busy these days. I get to know.
Yes. Thanks a lot.